And welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here for checking out the series. Please do hit that subscribe button so you can keep up with the entire series. We put out 3 new interviews every single week, a new one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So it's a great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover those new ones. You can do so any of the usual places, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can grab us at NPR, WFPK.org, Consequence, YouTube right here for the video versions. Anywhere you get your podcast from, subscribe to Kyle Meredith with. And that's me, Kyle Meredith. Today, I get to talk with Jack Antonoff about the new album from Bleachers. It's been over 10 years since the last time Jack and I talked. In fact, the last time we talked, he was still in the band Fun. They were still a band. So we're going to be talking about this new Bleachers record. It's self-titled. So we're going to hear what the original title was. It wasn't always going to be self-titled. We're going to hear how the band itself even has a direct relationship to his 2000s band Steel Train. That's when I became aware of what Jack was doing, kind of became a fan of Steel Train towards the last half of that band's run. So I definitely want to hear about that. There's a song on this album that he says is the best he's ever written. So we're going to hear which one that is. We'll hear how the word emo has changed throughout the years. And of course, Jack, as much as a musician, he's known as one of the biggest producers in the world right now. He's produced some of the biggest albums from Taylor Swift and St. Vincent and Florence and the Machine and Lorde and Lana Del Rey. And Lana makes an appearance on this new Bleachers record. So I want to hear what makes her voice so special. And it is special. And Jack definitely has an opinion on that. So let's hear about that and a whole lot more. We're talking about the new self-titled record from Bleachers. It's Kyle Meredith with Jack Antonoff. Good. How are you?
Pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not gonna miss that. By the way, you pointed that out. I just finished the REM the Michael Stipe interview, and there you were, right smack in the middle of it, hanging out with him.
Yeah, it was a very random moment.
I don't know. You have a lot of those random moments, but
I have a lot of random moments. Rarely is there a reporter present during the random moments.
Does that make any difference at all?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that there's a lot of I think the relationship between press and artists has gotten so funny. Because I believe artists should be protected. And I think often, just the way that things work and the way that things become successful is when there's, I guess the term is clickbait, when there's a draw. And so I feel like artists are more and more cautious now, and then journalists are more and more kind of trying to find that angle, and it's just become a funny relationship because I feel like very few artists now actually show journalists how the sausage is made because they're too afraid of some passing moment that will become the main event.
Yeah, I can't imagine being on your side for any of that stuff. Like even just I'm gonna get off. I'm gonna get back on topic, but even like award shows, like the MTV Awards used to be like all crazy and everything, and so everything's a bit more reserved, and I understand that.
Well, it's just a time period that will get past, but it's just a lot of artists, we have to work overtime now to keep the focus on the music.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the music because I'm such a fan of what you've done. I've been following you since Steel Train. In fact,
crazy. Very few people.
When I was thinking about, because this interview, and I think about that moment. There's a moment that is forever burned in my head. Steel Train was here in Louisville, where I'm based, and you're playing at this club called Headliners, and it was
we were opening for Rich Robinson.
I don't remember that part.
Okay,
I came to see you all, so that's
we definitely weren't headlining, but
yeah. But it was the end of the set, and you all had your arms around each other, and it wasn't like the bow moment. It was like this communal moment of music. And
we used to do this song all around one mic. It started because we played tiny venues where you could do that, and then we realized that, I don't know, if you can get a crowd to be quiet, it's a beautiful thing. It doesn't always have to be super loud. I miss that. Maybe we should do that with Bleachers.
Yeah. Well, that's where I wonder, like, how strong is the connection? Of course, there's Fun in the middle, the band Fun, and then the production career really takes off. But when I hear Bleachers, I still hear some of those thumbprints, those fingerprints of Steel Train.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, if anything, it goes like Steel Train, Bleachers. Fun is like a more of like a detour, because that was a band I started with two friends at the time, so it wasn't my lyrics and solely my songs. Whereas growing up, I always wrote and recorded my music, and then Steel Train was my music, and then so I see Fun as kind of like a to the left of it, and Steel Train and the Bleachers is more because even songs like, by the time Steel Train had ended, I had probably written songs like, I wrote Roller Coaster not very long after, which ended up becoming a Bleachers song, because the writing process for Steel Train and Bleachers is no different.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, again, it's kept me the biggest fan, I think, because of the way these songs are just, I mean, God, there's so much emotion in there. So you come around to this album, and it's self-titled, and I kind of laugh because to me sometimes self-titling could be the easy thing to do, but it ends up speaking
Yeah.
so much more. Like, we're betting on
It's kind of both.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, is there a reason? Because sometimes you just can't think of a title, but sometimes it actually does mean
No,
something.
no, I had a title. I had this title that the title was Tribute Living. Because I was writing a lot about what happens to you when you lose someone, and then your version of sort of moving into the future is dragging it all with you. But then the reason why it's self-titled is because the more I started writing and the more I started working, I realized it was the first album I'd ever made pretty much since the Steel Train self-titled album, where uh the band itself and the experiences of the band becomes the reference point. So when you're first starting a band, the first album, you're like, oh, I remember the first Bleachers album was like, oh, I like the way like Vince Clarke synth sounds, but I like how like loose like Dexys or E Street can be, and these type of lyrics speaking from this kind of like Midwest emo New Jersey thing that I have going on. You're talking all these reference points. Second album, oh, we'll do this, that, blah, blah, blah. And this was the first album with Bleachers where it was like Hutch, play it like you do during this part of the set. Let's have the horns do it like at the end of Don't Go Dark when we're playing live and we're kind of bouncing around, but we'll do this. You start to realize, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh, every reference point at this point is just my friends. And so it felt like the first moment, not a restarting of the machine, not a claiming of new ground, as much as just the first moment that it was appropriate to say, this is it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. There's still moods on here that I wonder, not at the reference points. Like, there's a couple songs, I'm Right on Time and Me Before You. Like, I Am Right on Time. I imagine this video in the 80s, the music video that they were shooting, the guy riding on the bed and he's, is trying. And then Me Before You is that part of the movie where you figure out, well, this isn't going to work out, but maybe we're still a little flirty. Like,
Yeah.
it's all part of one big movie in my head, I guess. I don't know if
Yeah,
you
no.
ever see these songs like that though.
Oh, totally. I see every album like a movie, and I think what's interesting about albums is that I think we all see them like a movie, whether we make them or listen to them. But then all we have, it's sort of like, you wake up from a dream and you're like, that was a crazy dream. It's like, well, you wrote it. That's how I feel about the way that we see music. That's your movie. That's, I guess, even if you were thinking about someone else, it's like your life is laced into it. So I always get really excited to hear how people take it, and what they put around it. It's just like dreaming in that way, where it's, you wrote it.
Yeah. Well, as someone who grew up in the music video generation and loves soundtracks, that's I do that a lot. But
Yeah,
maybe I'll
I feel
just
like I feel like we're kind of back in the video generation too.
it's happening, right? It's not
Yeah, well, I just feel like
curated.
it kind of like it's just I don't know. I feel like a lot of these like systems that everyone closed the door on, whether it was vinyl or music videos or these things, like are all of a sudden like bigger than ever.
Mhm.
I feel like that feeling again when I was younger, and I'd be so excited to see how an artist is going to represent the song in a video. I feel that again when people put music out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not so much curated to you anymore in the same way in the monoculture kind of pushed it, which I do miss. Like, because you have to search for it, and if you miss it, then you missed it.
But I
It's
think I think I still think we're heading back to that too. I think the idea of monoculture is it's a bad thing because of the space it doesn't leave for others, but it's a good thing because it creates this like collective experience, even if we don't like it. I mean, I've had some of the most interesting conversations in my life speaking about big monoculture things that I don't respond to. And then obviously there's the glory of when we have these monoculture moments where we do respond. I think we all long for it in some way or another. And my hope and assumption is that we could take some of the things we've learned and, uh, not go into the same old gatekeeper thing, but then also still rally around things as a group.
Yeah. Well, on the movie of this album,
Yeah.
I know how I see it. That first line, first thing we hear is "We were kids." What is the movie of this album to you?
The movie of this album is someone actually not flirting with moving on, not toying with moving on, but actually moving on. It reflects my life. There's been a lot of things that happened in my personal life that have been things, positive things that I never thought would happen. And my story is I really started writing music really intensely and with purpose when I lost my sister when I was younger. She was sick, and then she died when I was 18. And so a lot of my work, I always use the example like a rubber band. It feels like I'm always rubber banding back to that moment. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not writing about the past. That's writing about formative events through the lens of wherever you're at. And I was very much at peace with that. I thought that'll be my perspective, and that would be great. Hence the title. I was toying with tribute living, but something happened. I mean, on one side of things, my personal life, I got married. And then in the more public space with the band, I just felt like the music I was making and the way the band was playing, it felt like just a kind of a new time. It's a bit hard to explain, but I just felt like for the first time I could write from other perspectives and not just through this like grief lens. Not that I don't on the album, but so I Am Right on Time is just the beginning statement of kind of recapping that story really quickly into Modern Girl, which is so present because that's the sort of story of the band and culture right now from my lens.
Yeah. It's interesting hearing that because, I'm looking at some of these other things like even Jesus is dead. And then and woke up today when it says I woke up today and I saw God. I'm not even thinking that it's so much in the religious, I'm now thinking that exactly in the lens that you're saying, which by the way, I also wanted to say Jesus is dead. My reference, you remember the band Pinback?
Yeah, I loved it. I love
Pinback. Rob
Oh,
Crow.
cool. Yeah,
Such
sort
a
of
mood in that. I love
yeah,
that.
that very like kind of dry. Well, that's one like I don't know if you'd call. There was that moment. Emo is a funny word because it's taken different iterations. But when I was growing up, it was a proud word. It was Texas is the reason, and kind of like we called Fugazi emo, practically. But that some of that kind of guitar movement is very in that zone.
Yeah. There's Tiny Moves you wrote, I think it was on the document that you posted on Instagram. You said Tiny Moves is the best song I've ever written.
Oh, without a doubt.
So why?
Because there's just this you're always the most important thing when writing is to sound like yourself and be individual, period. And the more you structure a song, the harder that is to do. The more you rely, it's like, and there's just something about that song where it's so direct in its form and yet feels so much like me. And I've just never really had one like it. I kind of waited my whole life to be able to write a song like that. I don't know. Even as I'm talking about this, I'm not sure that I actually have a reason for that. I guess the most basic version of it is if you could like cut me open, that's probably the music that would come out. And that's just a really hard thing to stumble upon because often it's the collage that makes the whole thing. Yeah, I don't know. I have to think about a better answer for that because it's just something I feel.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all it is, right? It's just something you feel. It doesn't
Yeah.
have an answer. Not even in these moments. I know I'm up against the clock. I just want to ask, alma mater, which by the way, nice Tom Waits reference in that one.
Very
And
few people grab it.
yeah, and you've got Lana's voice in there. As a producer, as someone who's produced, what is it about her voice that
Oh,
we love so much?
it's the perfect voice. There's just very few. I mean, it's smooth and it's comforting and it's scary. It's everything. Yeah, there's just very few. Um, there's only two people in my opinion who've ever had that voice, and they don't sound similar, but it's her and Roy Orbison are the two people that do a similar thing to me.
Yeah. I love the way you, I mean, it's not the first time, obviously, but the way you guys sound together. And that's such a weirdly cool track. I mean, it's a little weird.
It was very odd. It was written in these pieces, and it was just it sounds like The Room to me. You know, there's a surrealness to it, which I love.
Yeah. I love this record. If I can go ahead and say that my favorite album of 2024 exists and I've heard it,
I'll take it. Yeah. Put it on the wall.
I really don't think I'm going to hear anything better than this. I love this so much, and I've loved everything.
Thank you so much. That means a great deal to me because very few people have heard it. So
yeah,
I'll carry your words.
I appreciate it, Jack. It's great to catch up with you. Thank you so much for taking the time, man.
Thanks for being here all these years, man. It's wild.
And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All 3 of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.